Now we're going to share it. Okay. Hopefully you'll see it now. Yep, there it is. So this is actually the next chapter, which is chapter 3. As you can see. Let me see. Oh, there we go. Okay. So here, what we're actually going to look at are functions, okay? I mean, I don't know if anyone here has ever had Math 104 with me. There I cover functions as well, but here I'm going to approach it a little bit different. Not terribly different. I mean, we're not going to get too involved into functions. I mean, from what I saw in the textbook, we're only really going to be dealing with linear functions, which essentially are just lines. You know, those are the things that have slopes. And we will see also exponential functions. That comes a little bit later. I think that's chapter 5, if I remember correctly. But we're basically going to look at functions, though. You know, we're going to see the notation. There's actually a lot of different ways to represent what a function is. We'll see that as well. And again, for now, we're just going to focus on linear functions. Those are just functions whose graphs are lines that are not vertical. You know, that's where you'll have that idea of a slope, which you'll see a slope is actually a rate and initial value. Well, you'll see what I mean when we actually get into that. Okay. Now, there's also stuff in the book about linear regression. If I have to cover that, I'll come back to it. But anything I skip in the book, you don't have to know. But anyway, so in many situations out there, you're going to have relationships between different quantities. You know, some examples I put on the board, right? You know, age and height, okay? I mean, one doesn't necessarily cause the other in this case, but there is some kind of relationship. But exercise and how healthy you are, right? I mean, with being healthy, exercise is not the only variable, but, you know, generally, up to a point at least, if you exercise, you will get healthy. You know, of course, grades and study habits, right? The better your study habits, the better your grades are. Basically, there's going to be relationships all around us, is what I'm trying to say. These are just some of the examples. I know, for instance, if you're in economics, there's that notion of supply and demand. There's a relationship between those two as well, okay? In math, we like to consider special kinds of relationships, and those special kinds of relationships are going to be called functions. That's what we're going to be dealing with. We're going to have functions. Now, in these functions and relationships, we're going to be dealing with quantities that can change values. And that's what a variable is. You know, a variable is something that changes value, like height, age, I'm trying to think what else, sleep, how much sleep you get, how much exercise you do. You know, those are variables. And you'll see that when we work, although you might know this already, but in algebra, with variables, we like to use letters such as X and Y. And generally what's going to happen is this, that you're going to have in a relationship, especially a function, one variable will depend on the other. The one that depends on the other is the dependent variable. That will usually be denoted by Y. So one variable will depend on another, and the dependent variable is the one that depends on the other. The one it depends on is the independent variable. You'll see though also that, I mean, we'll get to this, but you can actually think of a function almost as like an assembly line or a machine. What goes into it, right? Your input. And then the machine does some stuff in the background. What does it do? I don't know. And how does it work? I don't know. But for each input you get it put in, you're going to get an output. It's kind of like with a computer, right? You know, you put input into the computer through a keyboard or something. Then the computer will give you output, right? You know, through a screen, by printing, sound, whatever. That's what will happen. And that's what we're going to see when we deal with functions. Okay? But this is just a little bit of background material, so to say. And again, the best way to think of a function is like a machine, where your input is what goes into the machine. The function, being the machine, does something, and it'll spit back at you output. Okay? And this is actually the formal definition of a function. But a function is a special kind of relationship where for each independent value, you get a unique, for each input, you're getting a unique output. The independent variable, that's your input. The output is your dependent variable. And that's really what a function is, okay? Now, I don't want to go too fast, so I think it might be a good place to stop here. So I think that's what I'll do. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop here. I don't want to go too far ahead.